Welcome to the War Room. It's Tuesday, July 14th, the year of our Lord 2020, episode 280 of War Room Pandemic, broadcasting live from Capitol Hill. I'm Raheem Kassamin for Stephen K. Bannon. Got Jack Maxey on my right, Jack Posobiec on my left, Vish Bora here in studio as well, one of the stars of the Uncle Tom movie, another of the stars of the Uncle Tom movie, Damani Felder, joining us down the line here on the America's Voice.news network, on Newsmax TV later on in the day, on the John Fredericks Radio Network, and subtitled in Mandarin and blown through the CCP's firewall by G News and GTV. Over to Stephen K. Bannon.
Yeah, I also want to thank all of our distribution partners, and particularly the fact that we're ubiquitous. We try to be everywhere as far as distribution goes. And in that, we still got, I think, almost 11 million downloads on the podcast. Really want to thank the audience, and particularly for pushing it out. Look, one of the things we preach on here every day is action, action, action. Today on the John Fredericks show I was on earlier, and I said, I think right now in the White House and in the Trump campaign, and really in the Trump movement, you heard McGinley say it's incumbent upon everybody to start thinking about this early voting, start thinking about the absentee voting, getting your friends. It's action, urgency, and focus. Action, urgency, and focus. Damani, I know you're a man of action. If you had a chance to be in the Oval Office today, sir, and had a chance to talk directly to President Trump, what are the 2 or 3 actions that you would recommend that he take today?
Things that we would want to do is, if I was in the Oval Office and had the president's ear, the first thing I'd ask him to do is to go ahead and extend that terrorist organization classification, not just to Antifa, but to BLM as well, officially. Seeing the way that they have chosen to exhibit themselves in public, it's completely antithetical to the American way. I think it would be important for us to make these people realize that this conduct will not be allowed to continue unchecked. I think it will be important to classify them as in the manner in which they are acting, and then proceed accordingly with this, as far as legal punitive actions are concerned. But what I also think that the president can really do is also ramp up the attacks on the corruption that we've seen from many of the Democratic counterparts that he has to unfortunately go toe-to-toe with every single day. There's way too much corruption. The average American who is informed does know, and it does seem like things are happening, but I wish that would happen more quickly, because we know at this point in time, there's information everywhere. We are the information age, and I think just seeing some of the corruption that a lot of these Democrat politicians have been allowed to continue with unchecked, that needs to be called on the carpet as well, and need to face punitive actions as well, because we can't allow this to stand moving forward.
For a second, I got to ask you a question. We've talked a lot on here about Antifa, and we've talked, Damani, about the understructure of Black Lives Matter being very much like the Maoist, the Cultural Revolution in China in the 60s, the Bolshevik Revolution, 1917, 1918 in Russia, and all the way back to the French Revolution. This attack on people's spiritual yearning and also the nuclear family. I believe you're the first guy I've ever heard say that BLM ought to be designated a terrorist organization. Walk us through your logic on that. Are you saying, because it seems to me that there are a lot of Black Americans that are supportive of this. I know corporations that are looking at some of the issues about racism and maybe inadvertently caught up in it, but that the foundation of Black Lives Matter is clearly Marxist. I mean, they're proud of that. They talk about it all the time. But why do you think that they should be designated a terrorist organization?
Well, you look at the way they choose to comport themselves in public. The thing is, what they've been able to do is they've been able to weaponize a lot of normal everyday people to behave in a manner that is wholly unbecoming of productivity and moving the needle forward from a social standpoint. You look at BLM's, their stated goals really are just to be those cultural Marxists, to be anarchists, to choose to operate based off of emotions instead of off of facts. And we realize that what they're trying to draw attention to is minuscule by comparison to the overwhelming Black on Black crime that we have. And the thing is, when we look at what Black Lives Matter has actually done in these last 2 months, they've actually contributed to more loss of life, even in the Black community as specifically. They've contributed to more loss of life than all the lives that were taken by police officers of minorities in the last year. So when you see that they are actively working towards destroying our communities, at some point you have to bring the hammer down and say enough is enough. We're not supposed to live in fear here in America. This is a land of opportunity. We should all have the opportunity and the freedom to go out without fear and not have to worry about being assaulted by BLM individuals who are trained Marxists, who know what they're doing, and who are working to continue to tear down America from the very foundation.
Damani, one last question. We argue all the time here, and one of the things we focus on is the Chinese Communist Party and what they've done to the decent, hardworking people in China. If you look at the church, you look at the Christian church and the Catholic church, the church is stronger where it's being persecuted, right? In sub-Saharan Africa, the Episcopalian church has got these great bishops. The Catholic church has these tremendous cardinals coming out of Africa. If you look in China, the underground house Christians are some of the most vibrant, robust church in the world. Cardinal Zen and the underground Catholics, even though the Vatican's thrown them under the bus, because when they're constantly persecuted, you see this kind of toughness and this grit, and they really believe in their faith, and it's a lived Christianity. The same thing, the question I've got with the toughest, the most focused, the relentless, the ones that have the most grit, I think, in the conservative movement are Hispanics and blacks. And the question I ask is, why has it been difficult to get platforms? Why are we not hearing these voices? We're trying to do what we can do. We've got Vish, we're the black, the conservative clergy of color. There's other organizations we're working with, Raynard Jackson, Sonny Johnson, all this. But why has there been a problem when there's so many tough, smart, dedicated, and really indefatigable voices from Black America? Why has the conservative movement, and I'm not blaming the Republican Party, but really the conservative movement and conservatives, why has it been such a difficulty in getting platforms for particularly young Black Americans to really voice a counter narrative to this overwhelming narrative you see in the mainstream media?
Well, Steve, I think the problem with that is one, social media, big tech censorship, if you will, where they don't allow those positive voices to rise to the fore of the American consciousness. And I think another thing too is the outrage mob that exists online and in person. The reason we've gotten to this point we're at right now is because a lot of people have been, for lack of a better term, really shamed into silence, if you will. There are a lot of people, a lot of good Americans from sea to shining sea, who do feel similarly to me and to other minority conservatives, but they felt like the outrage mob will come for them. They felt like there will be some sort of harm that will come to them, whether that be job loss, whether that be doxing. These fears are very real. But again, these fears go back to the notion that we've had for so long. The left has ramped up their attacks on anyone who can espouse their views in a productive, thoughtful, adult way. And they preemptively made them be silent, for lack of a better term. We cannot afford to be the silent majority anymore. We have to be as loud as the other side is. And I just think the best way to do that is to keep pounding that rock every single day, to continue sharing truth to the masses, opening people's eyes, because we've seen what the agenda is, what the alternative is to the Trump administration, and we simply cannot let that come to pass.
How do people get more access to you? How do they get more access to your show? How do they get more access to your social media?
Yes, sir. So YouTube, I'm at The Wright Brothers. On Facebook, it's Damani Bryant Felder. On Instagram, it's The Damani Felder. On Twitter, it's The Damani Felder. And on Parler, it's The Damani Felder as well.
Thank you for joining us on War Room Pandemic. Fantastic.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Hey, Vish, I got a question for you. Jack, I know we got to get into the whole Dr. Fauci thing and this pandemic, and it's obviously more and more of a concern about the engagement, what exactly is happening over at the White House, or are they throwing Fauci under the bus? Does Fauci speak for the administration? But Vish, explain to our audience, what's the problem? Why are these voices that you see Larry Elder's film, we've been working with guys for years, why does it seem like this should be at the forefront of the conservative movement? Right, because it's a voice that's been persecuted. It knows it deep in its soul. It lives these principles every day, and it has to fight for them every day. And just fighting makes you tougher, right? Why do you think there's been such a problem in getting platforms out there and getting this message pushed out at the vanguard? So you don't have, which I think is ridiculous, trying to have 60-year-old white guys like myself and others trying to white-splain what's going on. you have the voices out there that you've helped us introduce to, and people we've pushed for years. That's how you turn this thing around. You let these fighters fight. Why have we had such a problem?
Well, I think we don't do a good enough job of actually going and scouting talent and figuring out, who are those voices that can really break through to the masses. I don't think we do a good job at all at scouting talent, at farming our talent, cultivating our talent, especially in the conservative community. I mean, just the conservative community at large does not do a good job of cultivating its talent, cultivating its human capital. But then if you dig deeper, they then don't even, if they can't even do it in any community, how can they do it in the black community where, quite frankly, the conservative community doesn't do a good job of, getting their message to them. Right, so we're sort of a few levels back. First, we need to be able to outreach to these communities in the first place, which we don't do a good job, and then we need to go and find out who's the good talent, who do we need to invest in. So I think it's a twofold problem here that we need to approach, but I think that we're doing a good job today of bringing that to the forefront, and we at least we have Damani, myself, and others coming and breaking through today, that perhaps a year from now, 2 years from now, we can build up this infrastructure to seek out and cultivate this talent that exists.
Yeah, it's the thing. People. There's a national poll out. Raheem, I don't know if you and Posobiec got a chance to see it, or Jack Maxey. There's a national first poll. I think they had Kanye on it. I haven't looked at the crosstabs. I think they took out registered voters. I don't know how good a poll is. I just saw it in fleeting before it came on. But Kanye, when his name's on the ballot, drew 2% of the vote. But I think virtually all of it, or 2/3 of it, came from the Trump vote. When they did it without Trump, I think Trump was at 40 or 41%. When Kanye's name was added, Biden didn't move at all.
Yeah.
Trump moved down 2 points. So my point is that there's a message out there that can be heard. I think young African Americans, Hispanics, I think they're looking for something different. And the way to connect, I think, is definitely we got to push these voices. I mean, look, how many people have we talked to about Black Lives Matter? And Damani comes on and says, hey, if I was in the Oval today, I'd say, Mr. President, hey, Antifa definitely, but you got to designate Black Lives Matter a terrorist organization. I mean, that's a full throwdown right there. That's a voice you want to have out there more. Because that's just, hey, you're going to get in my grill, I'm going to get in your grill. That's the type of fighters you need. If you want to turn this thing around, don't go in a corner, get in a fetal position, suck your thumb, and say, oh, woe is me, it's the end. No, we have millions of people like Damani that want to fight back. It's incumbent upon us to make sure that they're at the vanguard and supported and have the platform and have the ability to fight. And particularly, they're going to take a few punches, right? You got to have their back when things don't go so well. So Vish, I think a great job. Yesterday was so refreshing to have Larry Elder on, who's kind of one of the great mentors in all of this. It was just fantastic. Jack, I want to go back to you. I know, and by the way, we're bringing Kobach in for the next segment. We might want to bump that a little bit.
Steve, we have to break here, so we'll do some programming in the break and figure out which order we're going to do this in. In the meantime, #WarRoomPandemic for those of you on Parler, on Twitter, in the YouTube live chat and beyond. We're reading everything you're saying. We want your voices here on the show. Pandemic.warroom.org is the URL. Sign up for the newsletter. Follow us on all the social media platforms. Be right back.
War Room Pandemic with Stephen K. Bannon.
The epidemic is a demon, and we cannot let this demon hide.
War Room Pandemic. Here's your host, Stephen K. Bannon.
Welcome back to the War Room. Greg Mance, Jack Maxey, Jack Posobiec, Raheem Kassam. Over to Stephen K. Bannon.
Look, if you're an entrepreneur, you're at the vanguard of what's going to lead us through this economic inferno. And as an entrepreneur, you need every tool in your toolbox. The most important tool is NetSuite by Oracle. That's a software package that ties it all together. Go to netsuite.com/Bannon, Bannon, today to get your 7 action steps every entrepreneur should be taking during these turbulent times. Jack Maxey, We've got Kris Kobach going to come on in a second, but we got to get in this situation with Dr. Fauci, what's going on with the White House, what's going on with the task force, and really what's going on with the country. You know, we've been on Dr. Fauci since the very beginning, and it's not that we're not trying to attack him from the right. We're not trying to say, hey, he's Hillary Clinton's buddy, he's giving money to this buddy, he's playing footsie with Jonathan Karl in the Brady press room. We've from day one has said, hey, we think, and the show's built around being evidence-based, science-based, data-based. Our problem with Dr. Fauci from the beginning is Dr. Fauci shoots from the hip. Dr. Fauci, I haven't seen Fauci put forward any numbers in any briefing. I haven't heard him really cite real analytics in anything he's been talking about. And we've had a problem from that from the beginning because I think if you look consistently, he's just given terrible advice, including when we set this show up in January. I talked to John Catsimatidis and he said, hey, this is going to be the biggest thing in the world. It's going to change world history. Catsimatidis that Sunday had Fauci on. Fauci said, this is January, I think, 23rd, 24th. He said, hey, there's nothing to worry about. Nothing for America to worry about. This is really nothing. And, Catsimatidis calls me and says, hey, I thought you said it's the biggest thing in world history. Your hair's on fire. And Fauci says, this is nothing. From that time forward, it's on a half a dozen occasions, he's made terrible decisions. Peter Navarro was on the show the other day, one of the talk shows, I think Maria Bartiromo Sunday morning, talked about Fauci. My point, I would take at least until he changes, I would take what Dr. Fauci says in shooting from the hip and do the exact opposite. I think you'd be in better shape, right? You would have taken it seriously at first. You had banned travel from China. You would have had masks on earlier. You just look at consistently, the Fauci has just been dead wrong. Now, I don't know if that should be coming from the White House or they should let organizations like ourselves do it. But Jack, I want to throw it back over to you. What's going on? Is the task force meeting? Are they engaged in these decisions? What's happening around the country? Are the schools going to open? You're a pandemic guy. You're Mr. Herd Immunity. You're buffaloing up every day looking for herd immunity. Tell us what's happening.
Well, here's what I would say about Fauci. You always talk about the signal from the noise. I think one of the reasons why the media is concentrating on Fauci and criticism that are leaking from the White House concerning Fauci, all of which are correct, by the way. I agree with you 100%. The guy never talks about data. He is a prognosticator rather than a scientist most of the time. But what I think is key is they are concentrating on the criticism of the man rather than the actual criticisms, which are lack of data, this fear-mongering that we see happening inside this country. When you talk about the schools, Steve, this is a perfect example. Los Angeles and San Diego have now announced that they are not going to open up in-person schooling in the fall for safety purposes. Now, the joke is, on Friday of last week, the teachers' unions in Los Angeles said, oh, yeah, absolutely, they would be willing to open up the schools in the fall under one condition. You shut down all of the charter schools and take away those opportunities for alternative methods of learning. So we have to separate what is the reality, which is there are very few children in all of North America who have died from this disease. Almost every single one of them had comorbidities like cancer, etc., things that put people's lives at risk in general. We're talking under 20 people who are of school age have passed away from this disease. So you look around the world, I think there is universal consensus amongst the thoughtful scientists that the schools do not need to be shut. In fact, several states, several countries never shut them, including Nicaragua, Sweden, Taiwan. They kept them open. And the reason why was we're seeing now from all different scientific perspectives this idea that there is tremendous danger to those kids by leaving them out of the academic loop. I mean, imagine yourself, you go to school till you're 18, wipe a year off of that schooling, and imagine what that does to your opportunities going forward. Let's forget about the fact that kids might be in abusive homes. The schools are not there to monitor what's happening with these kids in health and welfare. There's been a giant black box of what's been going on with American children because the educators who should see them every day do not see them every day. So in that regard, I think that
Posobiec, yeah. Let me get the perspective, Jack. I want Posobiec and Raheem to jump in here of what Jack's talking about the White House. How do you think this is playing as far as the optics go of the school closing, how it's being played? You had DeVos gone. I love Betsy. I don't know if that was the strongest defense of the president's policies, but I want to hear from you two guys. How do you think it's playing out in the American people's mind?
Well, Steve, my first take would be that the American people, since the end of those task force briefings, those ubiquitous task force briefings that we all became so ready to watch every single day, I think since those have dropped down, I don't know if the American people have been tuned in as much to what's coming out of the White House. It almost feels like the message is harder to get out because there's so much going on right now. But those press briefings, which included the president, at least at the top of it, created a sort of a sense of a center where everything could sort of coalesce around. Everybody tunes in because you're going to hear the new announcement, or at least you're going to hear the new update. Now, obviously, they did get out of control, but I think if you could bring those back in a limited way, then that would really help the White House start to control the message, because right now it's getting lost in the noise.
Jack, to your point, I think that one
So,
of the
Raheem, yeah, go ahead, guys.
No, I was just saying, to Jack's point, I think one of the things that they really have done a disservice to the American people from day one is not defining the risk categories, right? We make this disease look like it's going to kill everybody. This is not true. Under 30, you have almost 0% chance of dying of this disease. And what we're seeing as we watch these things spike, most of the spikes in this disease around the country are among young people. And so in a sordid, sad way, over 50% of our mortalities are people in old age homes. So in a sad way, all the people responsible for protecting those people have already exposed most of those people. So this could, in a way, be a reason for the drop in mortalities. But we're seeing this out of the Cleveland Clinic down in Florida. They are seeing an increase in hospitalizations. But one thing that the head doctor said just this morning was that what we're also seeing is that it's younger people, and they are not necessarily getting as sick as the people that we were seeing earlier in the spring. This is the same thing that we've been hearing from the doctors in Italy, and we're also hearing that from doctors in Los Angeles and in Houston, that it does seem that the disease that is affecting people today is of a less virulent kind of form. So I think that we do need to open up, but I think that the president would do himself a great favor to get one of his scientists up there and literally explain in detail what the danger is for children. Axios had a poll out today, which I think is important, and it shows that 71% of Americans in total believe that there is a danger in sending their little kids back to school. Now, it's 82% for Democrats, 53% for GOP.
So, Raheem, I got a question. We're in the middle of July. We've been wrestling with this thing on this show since, I've been doing it with Miles since the middle of January. And Maxie was on this in late December. The show's been up since, I think, January 23rd, 24th, something like that. Why is it middle of July and we're still having these conversations? Should the White House be much more aggressive in action, and should they be much more aggressive in framing messaging of what Jack's talking about getting data and information out there?
Look, I think we have to go back to something that we found out, and this happened during the impeachment show as well, right? There are markers that you lay down along the way in doing broadcasts like this and going through the data and going through the specifics. And one of the things was remember Dr. Fauci talking about people going on Tinder and having dates, and that was fine, and they should take that into their own consideration whether or not they want the risk of getting sick. And it was back then, I believe, that Jack, you said at the time, hey, we cannot take somebody seriously if they're going to apply a bunch of rules to one set of people and then no rules to another set of people. And it just didn't work back then. Remember, this is at a time where we knew so little, and we don't really know all that much about this virus right now either. But it went to show the pure level of, I think, just knee-jerk Fauci reaction to a lot of these things. And that, to me, answers your question, Steve. Why are we in the same situation, effectively, as we were back in January? Why is this not going to change for a very long time, by the way? It's because you had people jumping in, whether it was the World Health Organization, whether it was Dr. Fauci, whether it was Dr. Tedros, jumping in and playing the CYA game on this, rather than playing the science-based, evidence-based game on this.
So real quickly, I know we got to go to break. Posobiec, in 30 seconds, what do you think the White House should be doing?
Look, President Trump started this whole thing out and declared that the United States is at war. I think reassume that wartime mantle, give us an update on the battle. Where are we right now, Mr. President? Where is this fight? Are we winning? Are we losing? What are the battle lines? What is going on the ground? Tell us that from the president, the commander-in-chief. Assume that wartime mantle and give it straight to the American people.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. That's not even a question. I think you got to step into this thing now and lay it down. So, and like Jack Maxey said, start walking through what the risks are. And if you need targeted interventions in states, you need targeted intervention in old age homes, comorbidity, or minority communities. Let's do it. Let's get these Tiger teams together and have them a better ability to deploy nationwide. I think it's just got to be action, action, action. Inaction is just not going to work. And I think you're going to see the polling start to catch up with you on this.
Steve, we got to go
back to you to take us out. We're going to get to Kobach.
Yeah, we got to go
to Kris in the next segment.
Quick break. Kris Kobach will join us in the next segment. Stay tuned for that. I know actually a lot of people in the live chat have been asking for more Kris Kobach. We'll ask and you shall receive. Greg Mans, Jack Maxey, Jack Posobiec, Raheem Kassam, Stephen K. Bannon, Kris Kobach after this short break.
War Room Pandemic with Stephen K. Bannon.
The epidemic is a demon, and we cannot let this demon hide.
War Room Pandemic. Here's your host, Stephen K. Bannon.
Welcome back to the War Room. I think we've got in the break we got a new nickname for Greg here in the War Room. We've got Jack and Silent Greg is what somebody in the live chat is saying. You're back in the War Room Tuesday, July 14th with Greg Mans, Jack Maxey, Jack Posobiec, and Raheem Kassam. Over to Stephen K. Bannon.
We're going to let Greg start speaking when he starts getting those clips hit on the exact same moment. Just kidding, guys. Look, in turbulent times, as entrepreneurs are going to see us through this economic inferno. If you're an entrepreneur, you need every available tool at your disposal. NetSuite by Oracle is that tool. Oracle's number one on the cloud. NetSuite's number one among entrepreneurs. If your company's $1 million in revenue to $100 million, you need this software package that pulls it all together. Go to netsuite.com/Bannon, Bannon, today to get the 7 action steps you should be considering and taking as an entrepreneur. Now I want to bring in a long-term supporter of this show, a guest we've had on many, many times, one of the great leaders in doing legal immigration in this country and doing it the right way. Has helped us at the wall, has helped the conservative movement for many, many decades. Kris Kobach. Kris, real quickly, in Kansas, I know you're running for Senate. We just talked about what's happening throughout the nation on this pandemic and the White House response. What's happening in Kansas? Are the schools going to open? Is this first wave surge taking place? Get us up to speed on what's going on in Kansas.
Well, regarding schools, the State Board of Education is meeting today. We find out this afternoon what their plans are regarding reopening K-12 schools. You might be interested to know that the governor, Democrat governor, issued a statewide mask mandate a few weeks ago. But the state law allows counties to opt out if they wish, and 95 out of 105 counties, give or take, have opted out, which shows that the counties who are closer to the facts on the ground don't see this as nearly as extreme a crisis as the governor does. Also, I've been campaigning all over the state, and I hear a lot about over-reporting. Just spoke to one lady in Wichita who said she went to a clinic to get a COVID test. Something came up, she had to leave early, didn't get the test. But she filled out a piece of paper, and a few days later, she received a letter in the mail saying, you have tested positive for COVID. So this over-reporting problem, I've witnessed it firsthand.
Listen, you've been at the forefront of the immigration movement here in the country of standing up for conservative values and really the rule of law. You've been very even-handed, I think, in how you've dealt with this situation and really been at the at a forefront of doing reflective how we use the law to sort this out, and particularly to work with and help the Hispanic community in this country, the African American community, and worry about their economic well-being. People are telling me now, are Republicans running ads against you out in Kansas in this primary that are going after you kind of viciously for your immigration stances?
Yes, absolutely. Mitch McConnell has set up a dark money PAC that's now running almost $3 million of ads against me. Once again, the establishment with McConnell leading the charge is attacking the front runner, who happens to be conservative, and that's always the requirement when Mitch McConnell attacks someone. The latest poll, McConnell's own poll, has me up by a 7% margin. I'm running against a rhino who made fun of Trump's wall, was a Kasich factor in 2016. And McConnell wants a yes man. He doesn't want a conservative disruptor. He doesn't want someone who's going to hold his feet to the fire and oppose amnesty and insist on getting the wall completed. But the crazy part, Steve, I'm sure you know these numbers. According to the last quarter's financial reports, Republicans are underwater $30 million in Senate races. In other words, the Democrats have raised more than $30 million more than Republicans have across the country. So why in the world is Mitch McConnell spending $3 million attacking a conservative Republican in Kansas when he could use that money to support the winner in the general? He could use that money in Arizona, Colorado, Iowa, where Republican incumbents are on the ropes and need help. I mean, it is insane what the Republican establishment is doing right now, because they see another conservative coming and they don't like it. They want a yes man.
Is this because the corporate donors? I mean, this is insane. Mitch McConnell so botched this Senate run. You know, he could get blown out as leader. I know he walks around likes being called leader all the time, but he's got to understand he's jeopardizing that for the simple reason. I think the polls now, if you look at some of these smart internal polls, we could lose as many as 8 or 9 Senate seats. So he's barely hanging on for life. Well, is it the corporate donors? I mean, who's pushing this? Is this McConnell pushing it, his staff, or is this the corporate donors? Why are they going after you? Because obviously they're putting another seat in jeopardy because they're feeding ammunition to the Democrats after you win the primary. Well, who's pushing him to do this?
Well, of course, McConnell's not telling me what his thinking process is, and I doubt that there's much rational thought in it at this point. It appears that his staff is pushing him. That's what we're hearing. But, I mean, he should know better than to spend there are so many Republicans who are going to lose in other states. Why would you spend $3 million in Kansas when Kansas will elect? I think I'll be able to withstand this assault, I hope, with the help of maybe viewers here and people around the country who've been chipping in. But why would you do this? I mean, you have so many seats at risk, and he's instead firing upon his own. And this is the kind of stupidity we see again and again in the Republican establishment. But they don't want disruptors. They didn't want President Trump. They don't like people like you, Steve, and they don't like me because we call it like it is. We push for a wall. We say that we know that the corporate funders of the GOP want cheap labor, and that's why they don't want the wall built. That's why they want amnesty. Oh, and by the way, the U.S. Chamber of Commerce just announced they're spending $400,000 against me as well in these final 3 weeks before the primary. And of course, they're pro-amnesty, and I've gone up against them in court many times.
Steve, we have
Chris,
7 minutes.
How do people get to support you? How do they get access to your campaign and to you personally?
The most important thing they could do is go to kriskobach.com, KRISKOBACH.com. We are literally taking every contribution and putting it immediately up on the air. Think of it as a gunfight where we're running out of bullets, and so as the bullets come through on the internet, we are firing them right away. They're outspending us 3-1 right now with Mitch McConnell's help. So go to kriskobach.com. If you can send $20, $50, $100, it'll all help because we're in a gunfight for our life here. And if we get through this primary on August 4th, Mitch McConnell's going to have a conservative who's not going to let him off in the U.S. Senate.
I think that's what he doesn't want. Okay, Kris, thank you very much for joining us. Good luck out there in Kansas. Glad to hear 90 of 105 counties not going to have masks.
Steve.
Can we bring on now? Do we jump? Yeah, Raheem.
Just before we jump.
We got John Solomon teed up.
Just before we jump to John Solomon, I just want to get from Jack Posobiec. We have some breaking news here about the Lincoln Project.
Breaking news. The Lincoln Project has lost their chief video editor. Of course, the Lincoln Project was focused on attacking Trump for his, he's uncouth, he's vulgar, he's not always.
They've been making all these videos and airing them on Fox
and everything they're airing. They've just lost their video editor.
He's canceled. Ben Howe's canceled.
He has been canceled by the Lincoln Project, Ben Howe, because they have discovered old tweets of his that were also vulgar, childish, etc. He's now been taken out.
This is 2 weeks after they did this incredible puff piece about him in Vanity Fair. Steve, over to you.
Who was the guy that was taken out? What was his name?
Ben Howe, who's been running the Lincoln Project's video creation, the ad creation, all these nasty anti-Trump ads you've been seeing, whether it's on YouTube or Fox News or CNN. Looks like the guy making them had a series of vulgar tweets himself and is now canceled. How about that?
Is he he's the Ben Howe from Red State?
That's correct.
Yep.
Yeah. That shouldn't have been too hard to track down. He was pretty obvious for a number of years. Want to go now to, I think, the one of the most important voices out there, John Solomon. John Solomon's been an investigative reporter, I don't know, 30, 40 years. One of the top guys throughout the world, has been stationed all over. So when he talks about something, he knows what he's talking about. He's got a new book. It's a must-read. Fallout, the bribes, lies, and scandals and ties of the Clinton and Biden dynasties. This is what nobody's getting to. The campaign really hasn't focused on it that much. John, talk to us about the book and particularly the wealth, the lies, what they've done as far as deal goes for both Clinton and Biden. And we're going to hold you over for the next segment because I want you to have enough time here to get people excited about this book. It's a must read. And particularly if you're a Trump supporter, you've got to read it and hand it out to your friends or maybe not Trump supporters. So talk to us about what the permanent political class, our elites, have done to us as far as making money and really having the managed decline of our country.
Well, first, thanks for having me on, Steve. And what we set out to do in this book is to figure out why, of all the things that Hillary Clinton could pick to attack Donald Trump, why she chose Russia. And what we found out from interviews, more than 100 interviews and more than 10,000 pages of documents we obtained, was that Hillary Clinton did a survey in the summer of 2015 about all of her liabilities: Whitewater, the Rose Law Firm, billing records, Vince Foster, the email scandal, and of all the things that were in the way of her getting the presidency, the Russia reboot, the fact that she was rebooting Russia relations with Obama and Biden while Bill Clinton had his hand out with $500,000 checks and speeches and multi-million-dollar donations for the Clinton Foundation, that was the single largest liability she had. We have the poll. You can actually see it in the book. So they set out on what we call a neutralization strategy. We want to scare Republicans away from using Russia in the 2016 election. And that's how we ended up with Christopher Steele on the bogus dossier and the Russia allegations of collusion that never were. And what we found out was that really it was a cover-up for the single largest, worst foreign policy mistake in modern American history. The Russia reboot that Obama, Biden, and Clinton did together gave billions of dollars of nuclear contracts, hundreds of millions of dollars of uranium under the earth, made America reliant on Russia uranium for nuclear power plants for decades to come. And then Vladimir Putin pulled the rug out from under them, invaded Ukraine, and they had to cover that up because not only did they make a big foreign policy blunder, they had lots of people, Hunter Biden, Amos Hochstein, who's the top energy advisor to Biden, Bill Clinton, John Podesta, the Clinton Foundation. They were all cashing in on the Russia reboot until it went bad. And so there was corruption and there was a failed foreign policy, and they had to cover that up. And that's how we ended up with the Ukraine and Russia bogus scandals of the Trump administration.
Why does it take, and Raheem, let me know the time here, why does it take John Solomon and guys like Peter Schweitzer to continue to do these amazing books with all this research? It takes them years to do. You got all this original research. Because, John, you came out of AP, Washington Post. You worked in the mainstream media. Where is the mainstream media in this? Those all have big investigative apparatuses. You know, you got Tom Hamburger and these guys at Washington Post. The
right.
New York Times has got it. CNN's got the K-File. Why is there crickets on something that's so relevant to the day's geopolitics?
John, you got 45 seconds here.
Early on, some of these reporters tried to go. Remember, the New York Times reported in October 2016 that the Russia case was bogus. And what happened? They got shamed. Their reporters got shamed by their own boss. He apologized for their story. So what we have is censorship. We have a media controlled by elites that try to contain the story, and they don't allow reporters to do what I've had the freedom to do, which is to tell the truth regardless of where the facts go.
Yeah, John, we're gonna come back to that question and more. If you'd hold over the break, we'd love to get you get more from you on this, on fallout, nuclear bribes, Russian spies, and the Washington lies that enriched the Clinton and Biden dynasties here on War and Pandemic. You got Greg Man, Silent Greg, Jack Maxey, Jack Posobiec, Raheem Kassam, Stephen K. Bannon down the line as well. Make sure you're checking out everything as we wrap the show. Greg puts together the show notes for you, so you got everything. Going to have links to John Solomon's book, everything that's going on in Kansas, Damani, Felder's YouTube channel, all of it in one place at pandemic.warroom.org. We'll be back with more John Solomon after this break.
War Room Pandemic with Stephen K. Bannon.
The epidemic is a demon, and we cannot let this demon hide.
War Room Pandemic. Here's your host, Stephen K. Bannon.
Well, there's some big primary elections happening today as well. It's Tuesday, July 14th, 2020. Greg Mans, Jack Maxey, Jack Posobiec, and Raheem Kassam here on Capitol Hill. Over to Stephen K. Bannon.
Look, every day in War Room Pandemic, 6 days a week for 2 hours, from 10 to noon Eastern Time, we go through the turbulence in the war in the world. The pandemic, the economic crisis, the financial crisis. Now's the time. You as an investor, particularly if you're getting close to retirement, need to think of adding precious metals to your asset portfolio. The way to do that is go to birchgold.com/Bannon, Bannon. They've got a 20-page report that walks you through everything you need to know about adding precious metals. Remember, they are the people that are specialists in IRAs, in the IRA of adding precious metals to your stocks, your bonds, your real estate. You need to think about adding precious metals today. The way you do that is go to birchgold.com/Bannon. Get the special report. We've got John Solomon on. He's talking about corruption, the failed nature of our elite. John, your book, Fallout, talking about the Clinton and Biden dynasties. Let's focus on Joe Biden for a second. The mainstream media has done almost no reporting whatsoever about Biden's graft, corruption, and competence. Talk about what you found out about the Biden dynasty.
Well, all throughout, as Peter Schweitzer's first book revealed a few years ago, Joe Biden has a China problem, Joe Biden has a Russia problem, Joe Biden has a Ukraine problem. And we advanced on that. And one of the people who's been around him through all of this time is a man named Amos Hochstein. He's the guy that talks to Joe Biden, the only one we know of who ever talked to Joe Biden about Burisma and Hunter Biden. So after Russia reboot fails for the Clinton-Obama-Biden dynasties, they go into Ukraine to prop up Ukraine, start to ramp up its natural gas industry. And what happens? Hunter Biden lands on the biggest Ukrainian natural gas company, gets rich, $3-4 million, goes to his company, sweetheart deal. Well, before that time, there's a guy named Amos Hochstein. He's been advising Biden for years. And he comes out and he's in these congressional testimonies in 15 and 16, giving the classic Washington elitist testimony. We can't let Russia have a energy monopoly. It's bad for the Eastern Europe. It's bad from Ukraine. America stands against it, except for one thing you forgot to tell us. Back in 2008, 9, 7, Amos Hochstein was working directly for Vladimir Putin's Ukrainian or nuclear energy empire called Rosatom. He was advising him how to get a leg up, how to put the U.S. uranium industry out of business so that American utilities would be dependent on Russian uranium fuel for years to come. And all this is going on. The FBI is listening to it, recording it. They have an informant warning them. And all these warnings that the FBI brought to the President Obama, brought to all the agencies, they fell on deaf ears. Joe Biden, Amos Hochstein, they were part of the effort to sell off America's nuclear industry to Russia and make us dependent for years to come on Russian nuclear fuel.
John, real quickly, go back over. How could they make an argument that we're safer as a country given our nuclear navy? You know, the announcements today about the South China Sea, our carrier battle groups today, all of the aircraft carriers are nuclear power. How could they possibly have made an argument, understanding that our Navy, in the core of our Navy, the carrier battle groups, go off of nuclear power carriers, and also all the fast attack submarines and the boomers are all nuclear power. How could they make an argument? It would increase the national security of the United States to have less control of our uranium assets and actually be dependent upon Russia, Kazakhstan, uranium controlled by Russian companies. How could they make that argument?
Well, what's great about this book is it really shows the two differences in foreign policy. The Reagan-Trump foreign policy is peace through strength, right? We achieve peace by being strong in America. The Obama-Clinton-Biden policy was one of appeasement. We'll give Iran billions and hope they don't make a nuclear weapon. We'll give Russia tens of billions of dollars and help them create a monopoly of the global uranium market, and they'll become our friends. And once Vladimir Putin got everything he wanted out of Barack Obama, he pulled the rug out from him. In fact, there's a great anecdote in Chapter 6 of the book. Right after Obama signed billions of dollars of nuclear contracts between Russia and the American utilities, there's a meeting with the undercover FBI informant, all the Russian bigwigs from Moscow who come to the United States to celebrate. And they're calling the Russians are calling Barack Obama racial epithets, and they're saying, we can't believe how easy it was to get all these freebies from the Obama administration. It's a fundamental difference between Democratic foreign policy and Republican foreign policy, appeasement versus peace through strength. And that's what happened here.
How do people get access to your podcast? You've got a new site that's on fire. Now the book. Walk us through how to get access to all this.
Thank you. Yes, so Just the News is just about 4 months old. It's the new website. I'm very proud to be working with some great colleagues and generating a lot of news each day. JustTheNews.com. On that site, you will find our podcast, my podcast, which you were gracious enough to join last week, Steve, and lit up the world. John Solomon Reports, that's the name of the podcast. You can get it on Apple Podcasts, get it on all the platforms. Google, any platform you listen to, you can find this on there. And the book is selling out on Amazon. We're creeping up to the top 100 already today, and you can buy it on Amazon, or we have a special deal on Just the News, where you can get the book, an autograph, and spend an hour talking to me about the Russia scandal. All those are ways that you can get the book, and we're just so grateful for the attention today that you gave us.
Listen, I know you can't do book tours like you normally would. Are you going to do things online? Is there anything that people can look forward to get more access to the book?
We do. In fact, our first one is at 2 o'clock today. There's a program at Just the News where you get the book, get the autograph, and you get a 1-hour private event with me where you ask questions. I'm not going to talk. People can ask me questions, but I'll do my best to give people the facts that haven't been given to them by the mainstream media. We're going to do about 10 of those, and I think today about 300-400 people are joining the session today, so we're very excited.
Okay, John, thank you so much. I want everybody in our audience to get on this. This book's going to be a major book. It's going to help define the 2020 campaign. John, thank you very much. John Solomon from John Solomon Report and Just the News. Thank you, sir. Raheem, talk to us about its primary day. Where's the primary day today as we wrap the show up?
Yeah, that's right. Greg, we've got Alabama, Maine, and Texas. Is that right?
That's correct.
And the big one, Alabama, obviously.
Yes, Tommy Tuberville versus Jeff Sessions.
And how's it looking?
It's going to be close. It's going to be close. President Trump held a conference call last night voicing his support for Tommy Tuberville, so we'll see how it plays out.
Yeah, and meanwhile, a lot of the original MAGA people backing Jeff Sessions down there in Alabama will be keeping a close eye on that, bringing you the latest as it breaks in the morning from the results. Hey, Steve, I think it was just wonderful that you did the warm-up act for me on John Solomon's podcast. They got to get a real guest on like Raheem Kassam maybe later on today.
Just be Natalie attired. I did it by phone. You got to do it by Skype so everybody can see how Natalie attired you are.
We'll see you tomorrow morning at 10 a.m.